So, very good evening to everyone. A warm welcome from the Coaches for You community and family. As you well know, that Coaches for You community is a large group of coaches from all the parts of India who have come together and joined hands to support the society at large in the challenging times. As host for today, I am Shalini, and we will have this webinar for the next 60 minutes. We would have the initial 30 to 35 minutes of the presentation and the rest of the time for Q&A. At the outset, I would also wish to inform you all that this session would be recorded and we would be posting this session for future viewership on the YouTube as well. So just to bring that up to your knowledge as we start the session. Coming to the interesting topic today, I'm sure, you would love the topic, which is building immunity through community. And something that comes to my mind is that we all know that love, belongingness, and connections are the true sources of well-being. And these are some things that nourish us and replenish us to really give strength to thrive through the situations, the challenging situations that we are going through. With this to take the topic ahead, I wish to introduce to you Somayaji Mani Kantan. Mani, as we call, the fraternity, in the fraternity is mostly known as Mani. He calls himself as an explorer and as well a companion for people who are treading towards their business and life expeditions. So he comes with a rich corporate experience in different roles and is an executive coach and a mentor too, based out of Virginia. So Mani, from here, I hand over the session to you and would love to know more about the topic and get into the depth of getting some real learnings out of it as well. Welcome to you, Mani.
Thank you, Shalini. I appreciate your warm welcome as well as a warm welcome outside my window from the sun god. I'm in where I am, it's morning here. And thank you all for joining on a Friday evening. Appreciate you guys giving me audience. Let me get into my sharing mode and then talk a little bit about why this subject is close to my heart. Hopefully you can all see my screen. Shalini, can you confirm that you can?
We are good.
Thank you.
Yes,
So
yes.
I can get going on that. I'm sure many of you have seen this BBC documentary, which I've seen quite a few times. This is in Antarctica, this photograph behind in the slide. I've seen one small emperor penguin, shivering in the cold, and all these penguins, big and small, they huddle together. And that's the way they survive this cold winter of Antarctica. For us, COVID is not cold weather, but something more and beyond. And of course, we are all told not to huddle with each other for physical distancing. Does it mean that we should also be away from each other? That's the question I want you to think about as we walk through this. As the picture shows, there is you in the middle. Of course, you have your family and where you are, wherever you are, however you call family as. And also there is this larger community, which is a wider circle beyond that. I represent today not as Mani, I'm part of a community that holds me. I call this as Rasam. We'll talk about that in a bit. So this proverb of it takes a village to raise a child is true not just for children. For me, I have felt all through my adult life as well as from my childhood. One form or the other community always have helped me and helped me through this journey that I call my life. And of course, it's an expedition. I want to explore as much as possible. To that extent, I take the help of a community. But interestingly, nowadays, the world is changing, right? And it doesn't change one person at a time. And we have to show up as a network of people, a network of relationship. And that's kind of how things move across. And if we if we join hands together, no cause is beyond, beyond reach. And the good news is that the time is right now. And that's kind of how I feel. It always has been right. So we don't have to think about number of people and critical mass around that, but focus on the connections adjacent to us. And this is kind of where our role between ourselves and the community shows up. And how you show up for the community is an important element. And that's where your personal development, I feel, is a conscious choice. So when you show up for life and you want to become, all of us want to grow and bring in our growth and serve the community, perhaps, of course, for our own benefit as well as community's benefit. How we do that as an individual is our choice. And this is where I want to get to know a little bit about you. By the way, as Shalini said, I'm Mani. I'm a coach and also a father of 2 children. And I watch almost now zero amount of time in TV, but a few other things I will share about myself along the way. But Shalini, if you don't mind, can we just do a quick poll to understand who people are joining at this call?
Sure.
Thank you. If there are a few questions.
We'll wait for a minute and a half for the initial polls to go.
Thank you. So a couple of simple questions. All I wanted to know is who you are and how you spend your time. I see a couple of students.
Numbers are rolling in still, yeah.
Yeah, I see a couple of students, homemakers, working professionals, coaches, people taking a break from career and business owners. Beautiful. I would encourage you not to be shy. This is just sharing about yourself. So I do moderate my content based on the audience. That's the reason this helps me. Thank you.
"30 seconds, guys, more to go, and we then close the poll.
Okay, I also see quite a few people producing and consuming in social net, as well as you spend quite a bit of time on TV, Netflix. Beautiful. This is a time for us to binge on those. Thank you. So,
Mani, are you able to see the results?
Yes, but I'm also seeing the next poll. But so anyway, so perfect. Thank you, Shalini. Appreciate you sharing the results for me.
Thank
you. Yeah. Thank you. I can see the results. So let me just dive into, we can take away the results. I'm fine, Shalini. Thank you.
Yeah, just a second. I think, is it, I have stopped it. Is that okay right now? Or is it still visible?
I just closed it for me. I don't know for others.
Okay.
So let me get going because we have a short amount of time. And of course, I want to get to your questions rather than me monologuing. So how to build your immunity? We all know how to do that by ourselves. We eat right, we sleep well, we not do things which you are not supposed to do, like drinking and whatever else that's not conducive for our health. But individually building my immunity is my responsibility. I understand that. But how do I do it through community? So this is where I want to understand these 3 words beautifully. Community, immunity. In my world, immunity means well-being. Of course, if you are well, then your body is well, your mind is well, and your emotions are stable, and you're able to perform this world and do the best you can. And how do I increase that is the question with community. And community in this case is anybody who we consider as not ourselves, anybody who's other. Somehow or other, I always started my community right from childhood. Perhaps thanks to my parents, they gave it to this village to raise me, and the village being a lot of beautiful people that rallied around me. As an adult, I chose certain communities. The first icon on the bottom left, this is an icon of service space. And if you want, I didn't specifically call them out because there is too many of them that I'm going to talk about. On the top right and on the vertical axis, these are the communities I am actively co-building with other people. The first one is Rasam, as I mentioned at the beginning. And this is a community that holds me, and there are few of them who have come here. I'm here because of this. And also there are a few other communities like Coach East West and Manufacturing Moonshot, Do Game. These are all communities that hold me, as well as I co-build with other people who are in this call. But I want to come to the Coaches for You. This is another beautiful community that people have created. I just recently joined about a week back, and I'm already being held so beautifully by this community and given a platform for me to share my small piece of knowledge to this community. I'm going to add a few more communities that have helped me, and the screen is not enough, but let me just share some of them. But before that, I want to tell you what is our mission. If you want to collaborate with me on this, basically to understand immunity and its types and areas where it helps us, how it helps us. And a quick definition of community, because communities, people have different definitions. This is not to say what is the right definition. This is to create your own thought process of what your community you want to define it as. And what is the interrelationship between community and you? And finally, answer the question of this seminar, which is, should you decide or should you build a community or join a community so that you can build immunity? If so, how? Make sense? Okay, so why am I talking about it? What credentials do I have? And primarily, I've been part of community, as I said, right from my childhood. I'll quickly speak to some of them. Many of them have been around for quite some time, and the bottom ones are all almost legal entities. On the right side, these are all budging communities that are trying to become legal entities. So a quick, some of them you might recognize. For example, the second one is the one that is doing everything in India, for Aadhaar to UPI to lending. So various beautiful things. They're also working on health stack. This is a community called iSpirit. There is House of Genius for entrepreneurship. Rotary, you might know. I've been part of Rotary. I've been part of spiritual communities like Isha and coaching community like ICF. As you walk through it, you will know that some of them are paid in community. Like Rotary, you have to have a membership and you have to be invited in. Similarly, ICF is a membership which is paid community. Whereas others are invited and you have to qualify. Like ICF also, you need qualifications. And the next one, which is a beautiful community, which is which is like this one, which is out here. This is called Kasturi. Beautiful people coming together, helping rural community change makers. And I'm inspired by one of the community leader I'm supporting. She's sitting in near Nagpur or in Maharashtra, where there is significant amount of farmer suicide. And this young lady, she's trying to think about building a Gurukul in that community. So you get beautifully inspired by people like that. And of course, to the right, Collaboration 4.0 or C4 as we call, is a community that the purpose is collaboration. So what's common across all of them? I can speak to it in a bit, but primarily, if there's anything in particular, we can talk about that as we go along. Any particular story of interest to you? So quick definition of what community is. There are only three pieces. There is human being you. There is a shared identity, what the community stands for. For example, Coaches for You is a community that is made up of coaches serving the community of people who are interested in coaching or who want coaching. And there is a relationship between the community at large and the human being who wants to be part of the community or who wants to create the community. So the key element coming in is the human connector aspect. And I, as a connector, I love connecting to and connecting with people. And connection is an important element that's getting fractured by this COVID, because in COVID, the rule of epidemic says that few people infect many, right? And that's across the world, it's true. A small percentage of majority are the ones who are building momentum in a community. It's not that everybody works on it, which is fine, but everybody can benefit from the community. That's point number one. So it's focus on the link between the nodes. It's if each person is a node in that community, it's how they are connected, because we all need each other for us to shine to the best of our abilities. For example, if you talk about my own coaching experience, by the way, this will be a little bit of autobiography in this sense, even this call. When I wanted to speak about this, and Coaches for You gave this platform beautifully because somebody invited me in. So we all need each other to shine. And all of you are here because, not because my effort to bring you here, because many other people behind the scenes are working to make this happen. And there is also a community of practice, which is a formal way of setting up communities and working together. And if you want, as corporate entities, you might have been very familiar with it. So I won't go into it in a social setting, but of course you can look it up. We can discuss what type of communities, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are paid-in communities, there is open communities, there is restricted, closed communities. There are communities that create value, value for each other as well as for others. So what is your definition of community is where I want you to spend a few minutes. And also, if you're coming from corporate world, the question comes up, is my team or is my group division a community? So team generally means that you have a group of people who care about the same goal. For example, cricket team, right? Spend a little bit thought process on, if you want to share in the chat room, please do, and express yourself to say that, what do you think? You are also part of social network. You have LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, and WhatsApp groups, and various other groups. Are they all communities? What is your definition? As you think about that, let me just go on to the next piece of it. Feel free to share. Don't be shy on the chat box. Share what you feel. I will continue to monitor it where possible. Otherwise, I'll go on to the immunity aspect of it. I'm not a scientist. I don't know much about immunity other than the fact that this last one, 2020, we have learned a lot about each one of us. As I understand, there are two pieces. There is a natural immunity and things which we take in, like vaccination, to boost our immunity artificially or chemically. And also there is active and passive immunity. For example, if you have an infection, your white blood cells or other pieces that fight it, that is an active immunity. Whereas as kids, we have been nursed by our mothers, thanks to them. We have built up immunity along the way. And also there are other ways to build up immunity, is what I understand from chemical fraternity. But there is a 4-letter word right at the top, which is called herd immunity. There has been some talks about that. But I want to go beyond just the physical immunity, because this tough times calls us for physical, mental, emotional, financial, and lifestyle immunities, so to speak. And many of which in our mind is not easy to build. For example, UN is saying that after this pandemic is over, there's going to be a mental epidemic or mental pandemic, right? All of us having challenges with our office jobs, some are getting laid off, various other things are happening, so that impacts our emotions, and family is sticking together so closely. For example, I'm sitting in my daughter's room and I have to throw her out because I want to do this seminar. So these are all requiring us doing adjustments, and that has emotional and other impacts. As I mentioned, physical distancing is a requirement of the time, but not necessarily social distancing. So can we still be close? For example, I know that Shalini is in some part of Europe. I'm sitting in US, and still both of us feel very close to you, perhaps as participants in this call, even though we cannot fully see each other. So it is about social closeness, even though we have to maintain physical distancing. That is, in my view, herd immunity. And this ties to
few pointers which are coming in very clearly from the people. As you said, we should, if you want, we can share it right now.
Beautiful, please do.
Where Manoj mentions that community for me, just a second, Manoj mentions that community for me defines momentum and action.
Wow, very nice. Beautiful faces. Momentum in action is wonderful. Thank you. Go ahead, Shalini.
Charvi says that community is any group of people that impacts my life in some way.
Beautiful. That's a
Yeah.
wonderful definition. That's what I live by. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because to me, community, as I said, has helped me. Um, Imagine going back to the Emperor Penguin, or it takes a village to raise a child. What does it take for you to today shine? How to form a community, how to build it, how to join one. I don't know how many of you are foodies out here. I am partially one. So that my thinking is this: 5 steps are very similar to how you prepare for your dinner, right? So step one, you have to decide what you're going to eat for dinner today. Is it going to be Indian, Chinese, Mexican, Thai, whatever else your choice is? South Indian, North Indian, beautiful. Typically, these choices come from our education and interests, because in a community, there is a common domain and what growth we want, what are our wants, what are our needs, and should we cook it or should we take out? Is this something that we have to join or you want to start? Of course, cooking is difficult. It takes time. I think somebody was telling me a joke today from the Rasam community today. Oh, cooking is the most biggest scam in the world, because it takes 10 minutes to eat, but 2 hours to prepare and 3 hours to think, aaj kya banayenge. So to make what you have to make today, it takes 3 hours to prepare and whatnot. So it is that much of time it takes to build a community. But of course, if you build it, there is a lot of joy. Joining is easy. Starting is fun. Of course, it requires you to make some choices, like picking a tech, setting a goal, and choosing some images like what I showed you in the first slide, where you have some choices of icon. Third one, portion matters. It doesn't matter whether you cook or you bring it in from somewhere else, you take out. How much you want, what you want to eat, that matters. Small is cozy, but also you need to have requisite variety. In food, there is a pyramid. You have to have carbohydrates, you have to have all the other pieces of the food pyramid. And tech has impact. For example, if you want to build a large community like Collaboration or Isha or other things, there are a few million people that are going to be there. So what technology use matters. WhatsApp restricts you at 255. And of course, how do you plan your growth? How do you invite people in? Are you going to be a closed community where nobody else can join? Fine, that's your choice. Choice matters, right? Of course, India, we are talking about India, so you have to have spices. So rules and norms, you can spice it up and you can spice it down as you feel. The whole idea is to have fun. I think there are some people out here, consciously we play in a coaching space. As we are coaching a client, we want to dance and we want to be playful, even though we are discussing serious subjects. And we, of course, for that, we need to check ego and stop and reflect. And finally, of course, we have to eat, right? So that's where the dialoguing comes in. We have to share expertise. We have to do experiment. We have to experience the community together, for which we should be willing to explore and invite people to evaluate. And we have to evolve as we are involving in this dialogue. So it's a lot of things going on. Of course, there are fantastic resources available in the internet. I'm not an authority by means. Together Institute is one place and medium that I go to for some of this. Okay, so here is a place I want you to invite you to come into this community space. I want to set it up right for you. You already talked about what communities you are personally defining it. I think you had wonderful definitions. In my mind, whether you are joining a community or starting a new one, or you are already part of an existing community, great. In either case, my invitation is to use this. At the beginning of the poll, you said you are spending X amount of time on watching TV and Netflix or whatever in a week. What if in this seminar, you can take 10% of that time? Let's say if I'm watching 5 hours of TV, I'm asking you to take 10% of that, which is 30 minutes, right? Out of the 300 minutes. What can you do to build and join a community that will help you grow? This is the overarching question, but I want you to break it down into smaller pieces for you. I'm inviting you to explore these 3 questions as we go into a breakout room of, let's say, 2 or 3 people. Question number 1, will you start or join a community? It's the same like, Would you want takeout or you want to cook? Even if you're part of that, what area would that be? What kind of food are you going to cook? Okay, what kind of vegetables and things that are going to go into it? How many friends, how many strangers you want to invite into that? Just simple question that I want you to discuss. As you get into the breakout room, which is the last piece of instruction I will give you, we'll give you a few minutes. I think let Shalini decide how many minutes, depending on the time. We want you to do these 3 questions as you introduce yourself. So go ahead, as you see some stranger in the room with you, say hello, introduce yourself, say your name and who you are, and tell what community makes sense at this point of time in your life that will help you grow forward. When you come back, I want you to answer 3 things in the chat room, whether you will start or join, what kind of community. For example, I've given communities like Manufacturing Moonshot, which I started with another gentleman, Manoj Kabre, who is in this call. Or it could be something about COVID resilience, or it could be about coaching, it doesn't matter. How many people you want to invite right off the bat right now today that you know? Okay, seems fairly clear. Shalini, anything you see?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Bunny. So I am creating the rooms. There'll be 2 to 3 participants in each of the room. As the time finishes, we are going to keep 6 minutes for the conversation to go on. As the time comes to a close, my request would be to leave the room, not the meeting. That's the only request. Maybe, technically that becomes a challenge later. So I'm just requesting you to leave the room. In case you finish a little early, leave the room. That will help you to come back in the main room, and rather than leaving the meeting altogether. So I'm opening up the rooms now. I would request you to click the join button as it comes to you. Okay.
Less amount of time than more and getting bored, which is a good news. What else you are seeing, Shalini? Thanks a lot, Mani. Thanks a lot, Prerna. Appreciate it.
I would request some of the reflections from the room, if you all can share in the chats, it would be really good. While I can see a lot of interesting things coming in terms of, it was an interesting discussion in the room.
Okay. Wonderful.
I would invite you all to please
share.
do post.
Okay. As you're posting, I just want you to take you to this slide, which kind of talks about where we are. Because to me, as Shalini said, it's a short amount of time. I completely acknowledge that. The idea was to give you a trailer. It's just a sampler for your food. It is not to satisfy your hunger. And in order to build a community, or to some extent, if you are an introvert like me, to join a community itself will be a tough challenge because it's a group of people. And I think one of the persons, okay, somebody has entered a mail.
Yeah, Mani, we have good, interesting inputs coming in.
Wonderful. I do want to take them in. I just want to set this context and we can take that in.
Sure.
Which step have you reached today? Have you reached the step that I won't do it? I can do it. Or at least I want to do it. Are you in the mid-flight? How do I do it? Are you curious? This is one of the questions I always found in coaching slightly interesting as well as challenging, because we talk about 2 aspects in coaching. One is being called conscious, and one is understanding your competency or incompetency, right? So sometimes we are unconscious and we are incompetent. And sometimes we become conscious that we are incompetent, which is a beautiful place for us to start learning. If you want to be a lifelong learner, I would encourage you to be conscious, but understand where your incompetency lies. Because when you move into next stage, which is conscious and competent, because when you start doing it, you'll become competent. And then if you are building a skill like riding a cycle, you want to go to a stage where you are unconscious and competent. But I am going to encourage even coaches today to forget the 4th stage, because if you want to be on a learner, you have to be conscious. Of course, you want competency, definitely. But more than conscious and competency, I want you to go to a stage called conscious and curious. If you're conscious and curious in a community, that is the best place because you can learn. It's like a buffet, all you can eat buffet. I go into groups like Rasam. Any day I'm curious and I get fed to my heart's content. I get to Coaches for You, I get my heart's content filled in. So that is what I want. I go to Collaboration for, or I get to any of the communities that I listed in there. If I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling not immune, I join one of those communities on that particular day in that conversation. Instead of watching TV, it's much more satisfying, I tell you. So I want you to get to that stage. Yes, I did it in 2020. Can you all take that challenge? All it takes, all the communities that I've shown there are less than a couple of hours in a month. So if you're talking about 30 minutes per week, it adds up to a couple of hours per month. I'm saying it's easy to do. It just requires you to reorient your time and priorities to build for yourself. Are you showing up for yourself is my question. Are you being curious for yourself? I would invite coaches and other people in this call. Please try that. Shalini, anything else you want to bring up from
No,
the
I
chat?
think we have beautiful reflections coming in, Mani. One of the group mentions, and Hiral has mentioned it here, is we discussed that we should join more groups only if we feel it aligns with our purpose.
Yeah. Aligns with your growth, aligns with your needs, aligns with yourself as you're showing up. Beautiful.
Manoj shared a perspective here saying, got to discuss the perspective of COVID times and got to know individual interests at this moment.
Wow. Manoj, if it is the same Manoj I know, he's a fantastic connector and community builder. And he has created so many things in this space. And he's a great inspiration for me because I kind of look up to him for a lot of things. Thank you.
Sunil mentions that never realized the power of community can be so interesting.
Wow. Thank you. You touched my heart, Sunil. Thank you. I
There's
know we
this,
can, go
yeah,
ahead,
please.
Shalini, please.
There's this reflection coming in from Rajesh. If you are a shy person, you are doing very well as you are a member of so many communities already. So it's a way to go ahead. This is for you, Mani. This is just a reflection that Rajesh shared for you.
Thank you, Rajesh. I think being an introvert and transitioning into not extrovert yet, ambivert, and in terms of me speaking in front of you guys, this is because some of the communities I didn't mention. For example, Toastmasters is one of the communities that helped me, and it helps in public speaking as well. So whatever message I want to share, if I'm nervous, I'm not going to share it in front of you. There are people in this call who can benefit immensely the community, but just they are standing in their own way. I'm asking you to step out of your own way, and just if I can do it, I'm sure you all can do it. Is my thing. Okay, so I just want to quickly wrap up and take a couple of more questions. Of course, if there are more questions, please fill it in. My promise to you is that if there are enough sufficient questions to make me write a blog, I'll be happy to write a blog and post it in Coaches for You. And that is my commitment to you after this call. Okay, so takeaways. Community is not a new concept for India. It's a Western word, perhaps. People call it as success teams in West, but we call it as satsang. Some people even going to the extent calling it as Sangh Parivar, right? All these words are not very alien to us. A Sangh is equivalent to community for us, whether it is Sat, meaning, I think, aligned with your purpose. Is it aligning to your truth? The key principle here is not everyone. In this room, I'm not the smartest one. I'm sure Shalini and other people are fantastic coaches, and I can learn from them. That is the point. I might have one or two things to contribute to her. And last time Shalini and we connected in a group like this, I learned a lot from her. Each one can be an inspiration for the other, right? It's like this. If I want to poke you with this, one finger, it's very difficult. If I make a fist, I can really punch you hard. So that's the impact here. When you're trying to create an impact, Coaches for You is a fantastic example. And I can show that in Collaboration for, I can show that in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a tough journey, close to my heart. And manufacturing in India is one of the other challenges that we are facing. How do we create distributed manufacturing or work from home kind of manufacturing, right? So these are all the challenges which we are trying to create in the manufacturing moonshot. And it could be on Kasturi models where people are trying to work together, where in a rural villages, how do we bring Roshni, right? So the world is waiting for you to show up. The world is waiting for you to join. Are you going to join? Or are you going to be in your own cocoon? This is the question. I'm not asking you to spend immense amount of time. Take whatever amount of time you're spending in LinkedIn, whatever social media, YouTube, take 10% of that and invest here. My call to action is, are you going to join one this week? Better yet, are you going to build one? What help do you need from us? I'm here to support you because I want to write a blog. And if you guys put a lot of questions in there, I will do it for you. I want to end with this last quote and then we'll take some questions. I always wanted to say, oh, I want to create a human impact and I want to change the world. But little when I found that if I changed myself, and beautifully the world changed. This is not a new concept. Gandhi told us and various other people have told us. But when you actually realize it, when you change, the world changes around you, is a powerful concept. And that's when you can band with other people, other Shalinis of the world, or other people in this group, who can together come together and create a CRI or create a CFI. And things of the nature that really helps. Helen Keller is a beautiful commentary on that. So I want to close my talk and take some questions. Please build your immunity, and community can be of a lot of help.
Thank you, Mani. The topic is so interesting that I'm sure people would want to hear more. But we can definitely move to the questions, which, we can see a lot of questions coming from the audience as well. At this moment, I would also want to bring to your attention that Coaches for You community offers a 60-minute of coaching free of cost with the coaches on the community. So please feel free to register for it, and you would be able to benefit from that, these conversations as well. So do take that opportunity also. So Mani, we are good to take a few questions. I have a few questions enlisted already. We had a question from VG saying, what is the difference between being held by a community and co-building one? What is your thoughts around that?
Wow, wonderful question. Thanks, Ruji. For me, I always found that it's like living in a house versus building a house. Yes, initially it takes a little bit of effort for you to build one. But of course, you don't have to build it by yourself. You can collaborate in that process as well as you are building. And community is not a static entity. It's a dynamic piece. So it's not like, okay, I conceptualize and then and build it. It's a co-creation. As a coach, we are all familiar with co-creation. So it is dancing in the moment. Of course, we have an intentionality. And in my case, for example, Rasam is a community where I'm very close to. It's a group of people, about 6 of us. We each help each other. We each nudge each other. We ask each other to move forward in the coaching journey, right? And this keeps us honest. I call it as peas in a pod. So if you take a pea, there are about 6 or 8 peas, and that's what each one nudges so that the pea is useful. So that's kind of how I see it. Of course, if you want to join a large community, for example, Coaches for You is a perfect example. Since it is built, when you join within a week, I'm given this beautiful platform on a platter where I can come and present, and people are coming in. So that's a joy, different joy. Of course, you need to contribute as well as you need to. You cannot have only challenges in a large community. People try to take advantage, so to speak. And that's the thing we need to be cognizant of. If you can contribute as much, I think there is a beautiful article on givers, takers, and break-eveners. My request to you to be in explore how you can give. The taking will always automatically happen, but do take from the community. I'm saying consciously, if you don't take, that's also a crime, because you're not valuing the contribution of others.
Beautifully said, Mani. And I think Manoj's perspective also completely, aligns with what you mentioned. Manoj in response to the same question, did mention that one is where you are the driver and the other is where you are driven. So it's good, give and take that he's talking about when we are talking about building one and being a part of one as well.
Yeah.
So thanks, Manoj, for sharing that.
Yeah, I would add to that, but I have two kids now, and as I said, one is 20 and one is 15, and they cook for me sometimes. Sometimes me and my wife, we cook for them, and sometimes they cook for me. They make even a simple thing like tea. It's amazing thing, tastes so good.
True. Thank you. We have a question from Rajesh. Rajesh, do you want to unmute and ask this question if you're around?
Yeah, I can do that.
Please
First
do.
of all, Mani, great session. Thank you very much. And that you look so cheerful early in the morning in the US, that's also speaks volumes. So great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rajesh.
Mani, I have a comment and I have a question. So
Please.
what should I go for first?
Your choice.
Okay. The comment is that your title, immunity to community, the word immunity somehow gives me a sense that you're talking about a disease. And then only, immunity precedes or succeeds a disease. So would it be something for you to chew upon whether you would like to term this session a little bit differently, because you join communities not essentially because there is a problem. It could be for various other positive reasons as well. So that's just a comment. It's not a question. This is for something for you to reflect. My question was more to do with the fact that when does a community turn into a cult?
Beautiful. Very nice questions. Thank you for the feedback. Of course, immunity in the body is about a homeostatic state, as I understand, even when the disease is not there. So without even challenges, without even problems, you can be part of community. That's how I have experienced community. And to answer your question, when does a community turn into a cult? I think I'm going to quote Rabindranath Tagore. And in Chitrangada, he says, joy turns into sorrow when the door through which it entered is shut behind it, right? So it's a beautiful expression. I remember, nobody can say anything better than Rabindranath Tagore in terms of poetic language, in my view. It's like that. The more open it is, there is opportunity of not turning into a cult. The moment you close the door, we are all group of people, we're not going to let anybody in. That's where it becomes a challenge. So we always keep a conscious thought process on who can we invite even as a guest, even if it's a close community. For example, Razam we are very, very close community. We are 6 of us. It's like a pea. It's a small piece. You cannot just add carrots and things into it. And yet, when you're making a pulao or anything else, you need to include other people. So inclusion is a key answer. And if lack of inclusion is the way in which a community becomes a cult. Hope it explains, Rajesh. Thanks for the feedback again.
Thank you, Mani. That was beautifully explained, that we have to keep our doors open even if we create one community, so that it grows and it does give back to the larger community going ahead as well. So thank you for sharing that perspective.
Sure.
We have a question from Nikhil. Nikhil, would you want to go on the unmute and ask this question, or are you there, Nikhil? Okay, I would take it ahead. Nikhil had a question. What's the definition of well-being that community can build?
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful question.
So for me, well-being is essentially tied to balance. So for example, physical, let's say, what were we doing before COVID? We were all running behind work and making money and whatever. Suddenly when February, March turn happened, now we're all sitting at home, we don't know what to do. And suddenly we realize, wow, how much out of balance our lives were, right? So this is where the term of work-life balance came about, right? We were trying to do this and that and something else. right? So for me, well-being is a beautiful term that essentially says, how do you balance all dimensions of your life, all roles that you have in life? For example, I'm a son, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a coach, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm 10 other things, right? Of course, I cannot just say, okay, I will give 3.33 hours for entrepreneurship and 2.13 hours for family. This is silly, right? Right? As you are showering, you may be thinking about a song, you may be artistic, you are working from your left brain, right brain, all aspects of you, right? You're working from your gut, heart, head, hands, right? How can you say that, oh, I am going to be this? But in general, that's how we compartmentalize. Especially men do that even more effectively. Women, on the other hand, they do it integratively. So there are some things we can learn from each other. This is post-COVID. I think there is going to be a lot of women power and activity, even much more than before. So I think my objective is, I wish all the women well, of course, but we can also share from each other, learn from each other, because in each one of us, there's masculinity and femininity, the yin and yang, right? How do we balance that? And there's a little bit of spirituality that comes in here, but essentially what I'm saying is, if you know how to balance the physical, emotional, mental, and psychological, of course, there is energy aspect of it also. A lot of times when you're tired, feeling tired, that's because you have lack of energy. And that translates into, I don't want to do something when you need to do. So that well-being is nothing but a balance across all these 3 or 4 dimensions of your life.
Thanks, Mani, for that perspective. I think though we just are on dot time to sort of close the session, I would definitely want to take one more question, which is going to be the last one, Mani, which I asked about, is how to keep the morale up throughout this journey of, being a part of the community and creating that community. It does happen, we all have that level of, our energies are high to start off with, and then definitely this thing goes down. So your thoughts around that would be something last question that we would ask.
I would say, if you are a parent, you know that very well, because children is a 20-year project, right? So any given day you might have I have fights with my daughter, and then some days I'm happy that she's there in my life. Some days I'm like, what? That's all there, but it's all how we package it together. It's all put together very well. I'm giving a short answer in the interest of time. Definitely. But I think beautifully, I want to add one more thing is this webinar is put together by a lot of people working behind the scenes for me to show up, right? So they are the platform on which I'm standing. So that's, for me, that is a family that I'm built in the last 1 week or so, right? So I'm sure, there are people who keep me in check, and am I doing the right thing? Am I going to be on time and deliver the right messages? So thank you for all of them. Appreciate deeply from my side.
Thank you, Mani. Thank you so much for a beautiful session. And Mani, the takeaway from me is I can do it. I am still on that adoption ladder, which you showed it to me. I'm sure many are here to reflect on where they are in terms of creating the community. And some of them have actually already are on the path ahead. So thank you, Mani, and thanks everyone for your active participation and the stories and the thoughts and reflections that you have shared. Looking forward to connecting more next Friday again with a new topic that interests you more. So thank you so much. Thanks, Mani, again.